welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, Minister of Justice criticizes National Assembly for minimal success recorded in fight against corruption, challenges lawmakers to pass bills that will strengthen the fight. Police disrupt planned protest march by members of the Islamic movements of Nigeria in Abuja, disperse protesters with water cannons and tear gas. Religious leaders join in protest march for Chibok girls. Bring Back Our Girls group engages citizens directly in public sensitization campaign. And G7 nations fail to agree on sanctions against Russia following deadly chemical attack allegedly carried out by its ally, Syria.
And on business news tonight, federal government sets up task force for the implementation of Nigeria's economic recovery plan.
On sports news, UEFA postpones Borussia Dortmund versus Monaco Champions League tie following an explosion in Germany.
And from Abuja, Independent National Electoral Commission INEC suspends 205 staff members, places them in half pay for allegedly receiving bribes during the 2015 elections.
We begin with a challenge thrown by the Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, asking him to reveal the budget of the House to the public. Governor El-Rufai yesterday released details of his monthly salary, which he put at 470,000 naira monthly, as well as security votes amounting to over 4 billion naira. Now, the action of the governor follows a challenge from the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, over the weekend that the governors, including El-Rufai, should make public their security budgets and how they disperse local government funds. But the Speaker, today represented by Abdulrazak Namdas, merely accused the Kaduna State Governor of blackmailing the National Assembly.
We wish to advise the Kaduna State Governor, Nasir El-Rufai, to concentrate his efforts in governing Kaduna State and stop undermining and directing the National Assembly in playing its constitutional assigned role in nation building. The Kaduna State Governor claimed that in 2016, the National Assembly budget for its 469 members were larger than the entire budget of several Nigerian states. This statement is patently misleading and a terrible display of ignorance and falsehoods, or a deliberate attempt to blackmail the parliament. For the avoidance of doubt, the National Assembly budget includes the salaries and allowances, expenditure and running costs of 469 members. It includes the salaries, allowances of about 3,000 legislative aides. It includes the salaries and allowances, equipment and maintenance of about 5,000 staff in the bureaucracy. Indeed, the National Assembly budget is about 2% of the national budget. Yes, the National Assembly has voluntarily agreed to publish its budget from 2017 as a responsible and accountable democratic institution. What happens to 98% of the national budget should engage our attention also. We are sure that if 10% of the public scrutiny National Assembly receives is also devoted to those spending the other 98%, Nigeria will be better for it. I am directed by the Honourable Speaker, Yakubu Dogara, to also, in the spirit of transparency, release his payslip for the past 6 months, from October 2016 to March 2017.
The Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, says things will continue to go wrong in the country until the three arms of government agree to fight corruption together. The minister said this while appearing before the House of Representatives ad hoc committee currently probing allegations that $17 billion of undeclared crude oil and liquefied natural gas was stolen between 2011 and 2014. The minister also criticized the legislature for not passing relevant bills before it. Our correspondent Larry Lasisi reports.
Go ahead and
it's the second day in the ongoing probe by the House of Representatives into allegations that $17 billion of undeclared crude oil and liquefied natural gas was stolen between 2011 and 2014. Officials of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation are the first to speak. But after over 2 hours of back and forth between the lawmakers and the officials, here is what happens.
And then arising from that is the fact that they haven't given any answers. All their answers are in abeyance because there are no figures reliable. So let's be clear on that they haven't given any answers so far, including account names and account numbers and all that. So everything is in abeyance.
Nobody in this country has a monopoly of patriotism. All right, it is very unfair to have people on the other side, because you sit on a higher pedestal, begin to castigate people and impugn their integrity and their motives. It is not fair. That is what the honorable gentleman has just done, sir. He said we came here, we didn't answer any questions, we were prevaricating. What have we been doing here? It is not fair, sir.
The House has given the agency a list of questions to provide answers to and to return on another date. Speaking on the ongoing probe, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation says there are ongoing court cases on the matter between the federal government and some oil companies. He then speaks on what the country must do to get things right.
Before the National Assembly is a Proceeds of Crime Act that has a greater effect of tackling corruption in the nation and its institutions. It is really sad and unfortunate that while we were contesting about uniform, we have not taken our time to address the passage of the relevant bills that have a greater impact on the fight against corruption. Until we get to a stage whereby we all key into the idea of fighting corruption as a unit, the executive, legislature, and judiciary coming together, working together for the purpose of fighting corruption, things will continue to remain wrong, and then we'll definitely find it very difficult to make progress.
The lawmakers say they're working on some of these bills and are committed to ensuring that the bills are passed. Lanre Lasese, Channels Television News.
The Federal High Court Abuja has fixed May the 18th, 2017 to hear Malabu Oil's application to serve the third defendants, Shell Ultra Deep Nigeria, with a writ of summons. Malabu Oil and Gas had filed a suit against the federal government and 6 others at the court over the reallocation of OPL 245 to Shell and ENI. In the case, Malabu Oil and Gas Limited, represented by Muhammad Abacha and his counsel, had applied for a motion ex parte for permission of the court to serve a writ of summons on Shell Ultra Deep, as well as a date for the motion on notice for interlocutory reliefs. Malabu Oil's application follows Justice John Toho's ruling of March the 17th, directing that any party that had an issue with the Malabu deal should file fresh cases to air their grievances. And staying with legal matters, as John Toho of the Federal High Court Abuja has adjourned to May the 25th to give his ruling on the prosecution's application to vary the court order made on March the 14th that the defendants in the case between the federal government and 6 suspected Boko Haram members be remanded in prison custody. Justice Toho also granted the application for prosecution witnesses to be protected when giving evidence, that their identities not be disclosed to the public, and that they be referred by pseudonyms. Our correspondent Yemi Siekbai reports.
The Boko Haram suspects, Mohammed Usman, aka Khalid al-Banawi, and 6 others arrive in court together. The 7 defendants, including a woman, were arraigned on the 14th of March in the Federal Republic of Nigeria's case against them for the alleged kidnap and murder of over 5 foreign nationals between 2012 and 2013, as well as for offences bordering on terrorism. Prosecution Counsel applies for an order for the protection of prosecution witnesses by giving evidence behind a screen, that their identities not be disclosed to the public, and that they be referred to by pseudonyms. Defence Counsel, in response, asks the court to expunge paragraph 4A of the prosecution's affidavit, as well as their first ground of argument, on the basis that it offends the Evidence Act, by stating as fact that the suspects were members of the group Ansaru, when that issue was yet to be proven in court. Justice Soho granted the prosecution's application but struck out the offending first ground and paragraph 4A on the basis that the prosecution had reached a conclusion in contravention of the Evidence Act. The prosecution further applied to vary Justice Soho's court order of the 14th of March, which had stated that the defendants be remanded in prison custody. Instead, they applied for detention in the custody of the DSS pending trial on the basis of public safety and national security. Defence Counsel's response cites that the prosecution were actually in breach of the 14th of March order, as the defendants had already been moved to DSS custody, and that they did not have the right to vary an order they were in breach of. Justice Soho then adjourned the matter to the 25th of April for his ruling on the application by the prosecution to vary the order. Prosecuting counsel was not available for comment, but defence counsel had this to say.
He who wants equity must do equity. You know, it's the discretionary side of the court. Court have already said, remind them in prison. Even I saw it in the page of the newspaper that accused person or defendant should be remanded in prison custody. Then on their own, they said no and took them to their custody. And then they're asking the court to legalize what the illegality they did.
This case has all the elements of a high-profile trial, and with prosecution witness evidence being given under protected conditions, its sensitive nature cannot be underestimated. So the upcoming ruling on where to remand in custody adds to its complexity. Yemisi Ipaya, Channels Television News.
The protest march by some members of the Islamic movements of Nigeria was today disrupted after policemen stormed the Unity Fountain in Abuja, spraying water cannons and tear gas to forcefully disperse the protesters. A former chairman of the National Human Rights Commission, Professor Chidi Odinkalu, who addressed members of the group before they were dispersed, criticized the federal government for disobeying a federal high court judgment ordering the release of Sheikh El-Zakzaky and his wife since December 2016. The police also chased the protesters with guard dogs.
Members of the Islamic movement of Nigeria who gathered in Abuja to protest the continued detention of their leader Ibrahim El-Zakzaky being chased away from the Unity Fountain by policemen. With the protest march stalled, the convener of the protest, Deji Adeyanju, and the former chairman of the National Human Rights Commission addressed members of the Islamic movement at the fountain.
When you keep a fellow Nigerian citizen for 485 days in detention without telling us what he has done, without giving him freedom, you violate the Constitution. An injustice against one is an injustice against everybody.
The police, however, ran out of patience as they sprayed water to disperse the crowd. A civil society activist who was part of the protest decries the action of the police, saying the protest is a peaceful one aimed at demanding the release of Sheikh El-Zakzaky and his wife.
It is very disappointing, the turn of events that have taken place this morning. This was a very peaceful gathering and procession. It was very peaceful. The people were speaking with police. They were willing to comply with the directives given. And then out of the blue, without any provocation whatsoever, you know, they deployed their water cannons, deployed dogs, shot live rounds of ammunition into the air, and all that. And without absolutely no provocation whatsoever.
Although a federal high court had in its judgment of December 2nd, 2016, ordered the release of Sheikh Ibrahim El-Zakzaky and his wife, Malama Zinat Ibrahim, within 45 days from the day the judgment was delivered, Sheikh El-Zakzaky and his wife have remained in detention with the DSS since December 2015, following a clash between members of the movement and the Nigerian army.